and welcome to Season 3, Episode 5 of Non-League to Legend. I'm Kev, and I am in the midst of some tactical experimentation. More information to come later on in the episode. I've got a live commentary match away to Ebbsfleet in the Conference Premier. But before we get into that, I'm going to tell you the story of my last month, which does kind of involve playing around with some different tactics. You know how I am with this. I keep getting mocked and being called the Tinker Man because I just can't leave things well alone, and it's because we're not dominating the way I expect us to. That's why I'm fiddling so much. But the last time you were with me, it was the FA Cup first round tie against Oldham, where we had a lot of players unavailable because of their parent clubs. The loanees weren't allowed to play, none of them, because I don't negotiate loans properly, apparently. And we were kind of forced into playing a 4-5-1 or 4-3-3, depending on what you want to call it, because we only had one striker, Jordan Slew. The other two were loanees. Now, at the time, I was quite impressed with how we played. We were playing a team 2 divisions higher than us. We were fairly even possession. Yeah, we didn't create a huge amount of chances, but going back over the years in Football Manager, I've always quite liked the 4-3-3. It's where I always sort of end up. I've mentioned it a few times over this series now, and it's just being forced into playing it for that game has just set my brain sort of ticking over, looking for ways to sort of shoehorn it into the way that we play, despite the 4-4-2 being fairly successful so far. Rather helpfully, that cup game gave us our highest gate receipts record, £150,000. It beats the previous record, which was actually a game I was involved in. It was £65,000 for the fourth round, for the FA Cup fourth qualifying round tie against Boston last season, which... that was me. I did that. But now I've broken the record again. More than doubled it, £150,000. Ridiculously, we're still £100,000 overdrawn, despite bringing in record gate receipts from that game. The projection is starting to look a little bit better. We're no longer going to be £1 million in debt by the end of the season, but we're still going to be £900,000 in debt and £3 million in debt in 2 seasons' time. So it's still looking fairly dire financially. Back to match reports and tactics. For the next league game, we were away to Hemel Hempstead. We went back to the 4-4-2, the trusty 4-4-2 that we've been using all season, with our dangerous strike partnership of Jordan Slew and Keshi Anderson. And they couldn't have timed this any worse because they both had really poor games. You can see I actually subbed them both off in the 70th minute just because they were just both rubbish. It was 1-1. Yeah, we had a lot of possession, but we didn't play very well. Hemel Hempstead are a team we should have been beating, and I was really disappointed with the way that my strikers played. So it's got me thinking even more, is 4-4-2 the way to go? We obviously struggled with it towards the end at Boston as well. Full disclosure as well, around about this time I also read Cleon's fantastic article about I think it's called The Art of Possession. I will do my very best to link to it in the notes for this episode if I remember when I'm coming to upload it. But just search Cleon Art of Possession. And that's a 4-3-3 system as well. So I've now got that in my head. I've got, we didn't play well with the 4-4-2 in my head. We played quite well with the 4-3-3 buzzing around in there as well. Plus I've got all my Football Manager experience from years gone by. Whenever I've been any good, it's been with the 4-3-3. So, of course, now I'm fiddling and trying to make it work. But we didn't quite have the players to make it work. Specifically, players identified in Cleon's article, he uses a roaming playmaker, which I've never used before, and he uses a false 9, which I haven't used for several versions of Football Manager. And I don't really have any players suited to those positions, so I went back to my trusty shortlist of scouted players and just filtered them according to the stats that suit those play styles. And ridiculously, the 2 players that came up were 2 players that were at York City when I arrived at the club. The first one, Ben Godfrey, we couldn't renew his contract in the summer. Someone's mentioned him in the comments a couple of episodes as well as a player I should be looking to get in the side. but unfortunately we'd already let him go. But he found his way to Fleetwood. They're not playing him, so he's joined us on loan. Initially for 2 months, but they were happy for us to have him for longer. And as soon as we get into the transfer window in January, I'm going to try and secure this lad on loan until the end of the season. He can play as a centre-back, he can play as a defensive midfielder, he can play as a central midfielder. Most importantly, in central midfield, he is very well suited to playing the roaming playmaker role. So he comes into the squad very much to allow us to start playing this new system. Won't necessarily come straight into the side, because we have got 3 good central midfielders, but he's going to give us an important sort of fourth option in the central midfield role, and also allow us to play with a defensive midfielder on occasion as well, because he's comfortable playing there. The next game we did try the 4-3-3. It was fairly ineffective. 0-0 at home to Halifax. We did have 60% of possession. We did create a lot more chances than Halifax did. But Keshi Anderson isn't really suited to playing as a lone striker. Certainly not as a false nine. I'm fairly certain I didn't use him as a false nine, just because there's no point at all. Had him set up as a deep line playmaker. He didn't like it at all. So I went back to my shortlist again. As I mentioned before, the other player that we found was someone who was here with us last season, and that man was Tom Youngs. He was on loan at Scunthorpe last season, was the club's top scorer last year. I think he scored 25 goals to Jordan Slew's 24, and he was still available. So I've brought him in on a free transfer. The board actually let me have some money to pay him wages, so I'm giving him £650 a week, and he is really comfortable playing as a false nine. In addition to that, he can play as a poacher, an advanced forward. He's basically something a little bit different to any of the strikers we've currently got at the club. Even if this experiment with 4-3-3 in possession doesn't really work out, he's going to be a perfect strike partner for any of the other 2 strikers that we've got out of Anderson and Slew, who, although they've both scored quite a lot of goals so far, they've never really formed a partnership. And I'm very confident. Well, we've seen from last year that Youngs and Slew already works together. I think Youngs and Anderson would work together as well. So we've now got a really good extra option as a striker. I mean, look at those stats. We're in the conference. He's a fantastic player, and we've got him for the next 2 years as well. I think we're going to make money on this lad. He's only 23 years old. So he's come in. He's not match fit at the moment, though, unfortunately. He did play in the next game, which was at home to Grimsby. We did play the full-on 4-3-3. Not quite the version that I'm going to use today, because we weren't playing with a holding midfielder. We had a flat midfield three. Youngs as the false nine, and then 2 wide players either side of him. But yes, we only won 1-0, but look at those stats. We had 65% possession. We created 20 chances to Grimsby's 5. 8 of them were on target. We should have absolutely hammered them, and I think if Youngs had been fit, we probably would have hammered them. Matt Breeze has also picked up an injury, so he's not able to play at the moment either, which is limiting our options out wide a little bit. So I think fully fit Youngs and Breeze back in the side. And I'm trying to retrain Keshi Anderson to play as an inside forward as well, so he can perhaps go on the other side, have Anderson as an inside forward on the left, Breeze, and perhaps as an advanced playmaker on the right, and Youngs as a false nine in the middle. It's starting to come together in my head. I don't know if it's going to end up working, but I know what we're aiming towards now. The next game, a little more disappointing. At home to Maidenhead, it's only a 0-0 draw, but we did dominate possession again. Youngs was just absolutely destroyed after the previous game, so we had to drop him out of the side. Anderson came in again. Like I say, he doesn't like playing up front on his own. I think if we have to drop Youngs out of the side again, my inclination will be to bring Jordan Slew in, play him as a target man on support. Doesn't really fit in to the support system that we're playing, but at least he can be in there to get on the Anderson crosses, and he's quite comfortable playing as a target man on support, because that's where he's been playing all season anyway. So Anderson's future is either going to be, if we go back to 2 up front, he'll obviously be one of those 2, because he's been really, really good so far this season. But his future, if we do go down the 4-3-3 route, is going to be as an inside forward. So he needs to get a move on and get trained into that position. And that took us to the end of the month. The board are still satisfied with my performance. They're really happy with the signing of Keshi Anderson, even though I'm now messing him around. And they were unhappy with our defeat against Forest Green. I was pretty unhappy with that defeat as well. That's where we are in the table. We're third, We're only 6 points behind Forest Green, who are top of the league, and we've got a game in hand on them. So despite all this messing around and some fairly indifferent results during November, we're still very much in the title mix, very much in the playoff mix as well. And if this new system can work the way I'm hoping it's going to work, we could be in for some exciting times ahead as we go into December. So, the team that we're going with, and to show you around the system as well, and this is the first time we've used this variant of it, and this is very close to the one that Cleon talks about in his article. We haven't played with the defensive midfielder yet. We've been playing like that, except we've been having Barrett as a ball-winning midfielder on defend in there. But I want to try, this is how Cleon has him set up in the article, so I want to try it like this. So we have Barrett as defensive midfielder on support. He's going to push in and join in with the two central midfielders. We've got Jesse Starkey as a box-to-box midfielder. He's really comfortable playing there. He's done that a lot. He's also comfortable as another option going out onto the left wing as an advanced playmaker, at which point we can switch the roles over and make Lee an inside forward on the right wing. I'm going for Corey Francis as the roaming playmaker. I've got Ben Godfrey on the bench who can come on and play in that position if need be, but I want to give Corey Francis a chance to do it. He's played there the last couple of games and has been doing okay. The biggest question mark is over Jimmy Lee. I've got him as an advanced playmaker purely because we want magical things to happen between Francis, Lee and Youngs, all very creative players playing very close together, and we've got Eddie Nolan pushing back on an attack instruction to try and get past them on the overlap. So we want magic from this area of the pitch, especially when Matt Breeze comes back in. That's where he's going to play as that advanced playmaker. So we want the team to get used to playing in that style. For anyone who's not read the article by Cleon, which I recommend you do if you've got any interest in Football Manager tactics, it is a superb article. But the big interesting and talking point, I guess, is the fact that the only player in the whole team we've got on an attack instruction is Eddie Nolan as a right back. Everyone else is on a support instruction, the idea being that's going to help them all sort of break through the lines of play, get the midfielders to drop back and make that a midfield four when we're defending, but it'll encourage Youngs as the false nine to drop back as well. But then it also encourages Barrett to push on and make that a three when we're attacking. Those guys are going to push on and make it a three up front. And it should, although we're playing highly structured, we've got an instruction on there to roam from position, and we should see the team moving around a little bit, making space for each other. And the key thing is we should dominate possession, and we should be getting up to the high 500s, low 600s in number of passes for the game as a conference team. If it works, it's going to be awesome. If we get hammered, we'll be back to the 4-4-2 next game, and I'll know not to read articles anymore. Before I forget to ask as well, let me know in the comments what you think of the tweaks and the changes, whether you agree with them, what you would change to make this system work. But as I've been saying all throughout Non-League to Legend, I love possession football, I love passing football. So if this is a system, or a version of this is a system that can get us playing in that style, I'm all over that. So, right, we're up and running, and we want to be dominating possession and keeping hold of the ball. We're doing a lot of closing down. We've pushed closing down up to pretty much as high as it'll possibly go. So we're going to be trying to press, win the ball back quickly, and then keep the ball with lots of short passing in midfield in what's effectively going to be a midfield five when we've got the ball. And look at that movement there. That is a beautiful goal. And it's very interesting as well to see the players who were involved in that as well, because that's what I'm talking about with the breaking down the lines of play, because we've got Tom Youngs there, who is our lone striker, but then Jesse Starkey's so far forward, and then the most attacking player on the pitch, that's our left winger, but he's playing on an inside forward instruction, has tucked right in alongside Youngs, with Starkey behind him, and Starkey's a box-to-box midfielder. So we're already starting to move around, make space for each other, make runs. Starkey's making a lot of runs into the area already. Francis hasn't quite got into the game as a roaming playmaker yet, but we're only 7 minutes in. So he's got plenty of time to establish himself down that right-hand side. Lee's picked up the ball there, though, and he's cut inside. He's found Youngs, and Youngs has found Lloyd, who was in a lot of space, again, pushing forward. And now Starkey's got a corner for us. It's all working well so far. We've already created that one clear-cut chance, which was for the goal. We're on over 60% possession, 15 minutes in. This is looking good. Happy with this so far. while our Ebbs fleet are just edging back into it now. Possession's evening out a little bit. We've had a lot more passes than they have. We're over 150 passes already at over 80% completion. So I'm happy with that side of things. And I would imagine against a 4-4-2, we're going to be dominating them for numbers in midfield as well, because when they are attacking, we're going to drop back almost into a 4-1-4-1. To be honest, even into like a 4-1-5-0, because Youngs as a false nine is going to drop right back into that midfield as well. As you could see he was doing there, he's pushed back onto the edge of the defence now to make that run, which is good. There's no one in there supporting him, but Francis makes a late run and plays a lovely ball to Lloyd, who again is pushing in that inside forward role. He seems to be enjoying playing as the inside forward, and that has made it 2-0, and that was a lovely goal. I'm not sure if that was a Francis through ball or a mistimed tackle that bobbled out to Lloyd, but ultimately he was in the position he needed to be in, and Jesse Starkey was in the box as well. So considering we were only playing with one striker and he wasn't in the box, we did have 3 players in the penalty area on that move. And that was a counter-attack as well. So it's not as if we were pushing loads of men forward. We were just breaking really quickly. Oh, that's where we are going to be a little bit vulnerable to sort of quick attacks from the opposition. And they will probably wise up to that eventually. The fact that we are potentially vulnerable to them just knocking the ball over the top and getting in behind us. Hopefully, I'm happy to go with the we'll score more goals than you mentality, and if they get a couple like that, we'll get 3 or 4 playing football the right way. That's the thinking anyway. Probably won't work out that way. Like I said, I'd love to be taking all the credit for the tactics in this match, but it's almost a complete rip-off of Cleon's system at the moment. I'm going to be tweaking it myself over the next few games, and I had been tweaking it running up to this game as well. This is the closest we've come to ripping him off, and it just happens to be the Livecom game I'm doing. But there are more tweaks that I've got in mind, particularly finding a way to get Matt Breeze into this team. I've got him earmarked for that advanced playmaker role, but if he doesn't suit it when he comes back in, we're going to need to have a sort of rethink, a bit of a tweak, whether it involves him playing as the inside forward, because he's comfortable playing up front, or potentially we could maybe try a winger, but the problem with wingers is as soon as we start running with the ball too much, we're then risking giving up the possession that we're working so hard for and losing some of these lovely little passing triangles that we're forming there. Francis has picked the ball up in an excellent position. Look how far in field Jimmy Lee, our right winger, is. Nolan has pushed on the right wing. He's got lots of space. Finds Berwick. Back to Lee. Francis. Lloyd. That was a beautiful move. And that is Lloyd's hat-trick from the left wing. This is the man I was trying to sell before the season started. He has suddenly found himself with a new lease of life as an inside forward. It's the first time I played him in that role, and he's basically just said to me, yeah, boss, I quite like playing as an inside forward. Can I do that a bit more often, please? Because only one of them has been a clear-cut chance. The other 2 have just been individual brilliance from him. And to get a hat-trick in his first time playing in a new role, in a new system, that's a pretty good way to say he wants to carry on playing in this style. And I'm enjoying this. This is good. I just wish I'd have thought of it. But you know, putting my manager head on, I thought of applying it to our team, so I can take credit for it on that basis. Right, I'm tweaking things a little bit here. So we're bringing Slew on. I'm going to put him as a deep line forward on support because he can't handle the false 9. Anderson is going to go to be an inside forward, which means as well as Lloyd has been playing as inside forward, I'm switching him to playmaker, and we're going to push Smith forward as the attacking fullback, and we're going to go with that. I think I'm going to bring my next change I'm aiming for is to bring Godfrey on. I want to give him time in the roaming playmaker role, but Francis is playing really well there, and I don't really want to take him off. But that's why Godfrey's signed, so I need to give him some game time there because he could be potentially even better. Starkey's picked the ball up there. He's found Lloyd. Lloyd to Slew, and Slew should have scored. That's the sort of chance he would normally score for us. So it's a bit of a shame he couldn't convert that and just give me a little bit more of an option up front because Tom Youngs Obviously didn't score. He was effective at linking up the play, but if Slew can come in and get a couple of goals in the 20 minutes he's got, gives me a difficult decision to make going into the next game. But if he's going to miss sitters like that, when he doesn't have that extra dimension to his game that Youngs has, it makes it a little bit of an easier decision to keep Youngs in the team. Right, I am going to bring Ben Godfrey on now for Corey Francis. See, the game says he can't play there, but if we look at his stats, filtered for roaming playmaker. Now his finishing's not ideal, and I suppose his technique is a little bit weak. But at this level, for a roaming playmaker, I'm pretty comfortable with those stats. There's a little bit of work to do, but the lad's 19, and he'd definitely be someone I'd be looking to bring back into the club long term if Fleetwood would let us have him. It's just a shame we couldn't keep hold of him in the summer, but he was just one of those players who, because of the money situation, we couldn't offer everybody new contracts at the same time, and he just wasn't a high priority in the summer. Kind of wish I'd have prioritised him now. Wonder who we retained ahead of him. Probably, I imagine it was Lloyd, maybe. Lloyd was a bit of a question mark, but we kept him on because of resale value, which I didn't think there was as much of with Godfrey. But then he scored a hat-trick. Godfrey. Then Lloyd scored a hat-trick today, so he's had the last laugh on me. And this has all gone a little bit quiet now after the substitutions. That being said, we're moving forward here, and no, that was just the end of the game highlight. Well, I'm fairly comfortable saying that system worked. Now, it's going to need a few more tweaks, and we are very reliant on a few players being able to play in certain positions. Lloyd's not going to score a hat-trick every game, so we need to make sure there's goals coming from everywhere else, but it's certainly something I'm going to persist with and we're going to keep fiddling with, and hopefully we're going to turn it into something that really works for us and can help us push on for automatic promotion. If you've enjoyed that episode, make sure you pop a like on there for me, and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss out on tomorrow's episode. And once again, read Cleon's article, because all credit for that win goes to that article. It's completely ripped off from him. But yeah, thanks very much for watching.